Welcome back to Part T with Becky and Kenzie. Today's topic is embracing your darkness.
All right, so let's go deeper a little bit because I'm not an expert on this, into the subconscious mind. So the subconscious mind is a very powerful force that can direct your life without your awareness. It is your unlimited memory bank. It stores everything that's ever happened to you. It pulls you back into your comfort zone. So when we're trying something new or we want to do something new, even before we try something new, that little voice in your head that's like, maybe you want to sit this one out, or maybe you want to go home and, Netflix and sit on the couch and have some snacks and not leave the house. It's that little voice inside. The subconscious mind stores and retrieves data. It makes sure that you respond exactly the way you've been programmed to respond. So we talked about that as a child, being programmed, and how our parents and adults in our lives program us from a very, very, very young age with the words that they speak and the actions that they do. The subconscious mind makes everything you say and do fit a pattern consistent with your self-concept. And maybe at some point we'll do a video about this subconscious mind. Maybe we can get an expert, if you're an expert on the subconscious mind or someone.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be a really cool video, but I know I would need some help with that.
Yeah. Also, like, the subconscious is like every cell of your body, and it's not your conscious mind, so you're not aware of the reactions that you're doing, because maybe, like you said, it was something that was conditioned in you from birth. Who knows? Like, if you had a traumatic birth, that's in every cell of your body and that stays with you. You don't consciously remember being born, but that idea of fearing life is stuck with you. That's actually something I learned from my hypnotherapist, because that's all about the subconscious mind. And she had asked me one day, she's like, I am getting like this. She's also does like more of intuitive work with hypnotherapy. So she's like, I'm getting this message that I need to do like a life death sort of like session with you. And I was like, that's interesting. Like, to me, that didn't ring any bells. I was like, why would she need to do that? And she's like, did anything like happen to you when you were younger? And I'm consciously, in my conscious mind, I'm like, no, like I had a pretty stable childhood, like nothing really, besides the usual conditioning of things that, are said and things like that. But then I thought back to my mom's birth story of me was very traumatic. I was a C-section baby. Not to be morbid, but I almost died the whole first week of my life. I wouldn't eat. So they didn't know if I was going to survive. So like that is very like traumatic, but I consciously can't remember that. But my body held on to this fear of life. And when I told her, I'm like, I've always, from as long as I can remember, I've always been so fearful of everything, of life, of the darkness, of being by myself, of everything. And she's like, that has to do with your birth. And I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense now. But that's all subconscious stuff that my body was programmed to be fearful of everything because of how I was born. And that's no one's fault, that's just how it happened. So the subconscious is just so interesting. Like it's in every cell of your body, and it's so intricate. Like, we definitely need to find an expert.
It sounds like your hypnotherapist.
Yeah, I could ask her. Yeah, I could ask her if she could help.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because now I'm thinking back. So now I'm like, okay, I'm listening to you and I'm like, well, let me take it back. Like my birth. And I was born breech like, so not an actual breech baby, but I was born with my feet behind my neck.
Mm.
It came out like a pretzel.
Yeah.
So, um, that had to have been traumatic because I'm
Definitely, I'm sure
all like,
suffocating, like, I'm sure if you've
mhm,
been feeling,
yeah, oh, maybe that's why I don't like to be smothered and suffocated. I don't even like to be
it
tucked in
makes
the
sense.
covers.
Yeah, it very well could be, like, you don't think of those things, but when you start diving into your subconscious,
Yeah,
like, so many things get uncovered, and that has a lot to do with your shadow self and embracing those dark parts that you were not even aware of.
yeah, and then giving birth was
Yeah,
also traumatic, like, in
yeah,
its own self, like, my water breaking a month early when I was not mentally prepared, like, stuff wasn't even we had the nursery set up, the crib set up, and the car seats in the
and that's
car.
it.
That was it.
Yeah,
Everything else was still in boxes and clothes were washed. So those 3 things. So, like,
yeah,
that's very normal, and I wanna normalize giving birth is traumatic because it's a huge undertaking.
change, yeah,
It's your body doing something amazing, but it's scary, especially, like, your first time. I When my water broke and I was like, "I think my water broke," because what do I have to go by
right,
as,
you
like,
don't
the
know.
first, like,
Yeah,
pregnancy, first birth? Um, and then we were in the hospital, and I remember calling my mom. I think that happened at, like, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I think I waited till maybe, like, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the morning, and I called my mom, and I was crying, and I was so scared, and I
yeah,
just said to her, "I'm scared, like, I don't know if I can do this."
yeah,
And it's been a
um,
while since I've cried on
yeah,
a video, so,
you did it,
like,
look so
yeah,
beautiful and healthy about
yeah,
it, right?
it's like a re it's just it's not happy, it's not sad tears, it's just like that release.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a big surge of emotion when you think back to that.
yeah, and
That
it's emotional giving birth, like,
Yeah,
after she was born and she was, like, fully out, 'cause I'm like, I had the epidural, but talking with my friends, I don't think,
it
not
can
that it didn't work, but I felt everything because 'cause they're
yeah,
like, "What do you mean you could feel her, like, coming out and you could feel, like, oh," and I was like, "I don't know, I
feel it.
felt every," but I needed to feel that, I guess, because it freaked me out more being, like, numb from the waist down and not knowing what was going on, or not like, if you have to push, well, what am I pushing because I don't, like, feel
Right.
anything.
Yeah,
Um, and I remember just screaming or saying, like, oh my god," like, just,
yeah,
it was like an out of body experience, like, the whole, like, I remember parts of it are a little fuzzy, but
sure, yeah,
I wanna, like, normalize, like, giving birth is traumatic, whether it's your
yeah,
first pregnancy, your 10th however many
right.
pregnancy, like, each birth, bringing life into the world,
Mhm.
right? It's not all rainbows, unicorns, and sunshine. It's
Yeah,
dirty, it's messy, it's gritty, it's,
mhm,
like, emotional, and
yeah.
it's normal.
I remember my cousin had her first baby, he's 2 now, or gonna be 3,
Okay.
and she was just saying how afterwards, you always see the depiction of mothers, like, bonding with their babies and being joyful and like all the happy moments of motherhood. But she's like, I felt so disconnected from my body. I felt like a machine. Like she's like, I had no idea like how to now like be this new person to take care of this little baby. Like it's a lot of things that people don't tell you. And she's like, when you're pregnant, I'm gonna tell you all the bad shit that happened
Yeah.
because I want you to be ready. And I'm like, please do,
Yeah.
because no one's going to tell you that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that you need to know so that you're prepared, like you said, so that it's not as, traumatic. I mean, regardless, it's gonna be a huge change and like you said, like almost like an outer body experience. But if you
The
could be a
pushing
little more
part.
prepared, yeah, if you could be a little more aware of what's going to be happening, you know, hopefully, like you said, it could be more normalized, that it's not this beautiful thing from the start. Yes, eventually it turns into a beautiful, you know, baby, and you have this great life and this great child, but the to get there is the dark part. That's the darkness, you know?
I wish somebody told me all the gross things that were going to come out of my body
Yeah, that's
before,
what she said too.
before, during, and after labor and delivery, because I was just like, like I was,
Yeah,
which I did actually throw up during one of the contractions. Just that first
yeah,
really like real contraction, I threw up because
yeah.
that's how my
But
body
yeah,
responds to pain. Like I get nauseous and I throw up when it's that intense.
yeah,
But yeah, I had a similar experience with your cousin because they took her from me. They took
yeah.
her to the NICU. I didn't have what was in the birthing class that we took, this beautiful,
Bonding.
oh, the baby just flies right out and they gently put her on your stomach
Yeah,
and then you bond for the first hour and it's just everyone is like,
yeah.
you know,
And you
and,
didn't get that.
and I went into the worst fear and panic of my life because
Yeah,
the child that I just gave birth to was ripped out of my arms
yeah,
and rushed to the NICU because she was having trouble breathing.
yeah.
And
That's so scary.
I had to ask, I was asking, like repeating myself, is she going to be okay? Is she going to be like, it was just coming out. And I was like, somebody needs to tell me, like, because
Yeah.
I wasn't believing them. Like I had to just keep saying it until I believed them.
Hmm.
And finally, the doctor just said, like, look at her, like, just look, you know, she has fluid in her lungs, like, you know, and yeah, I know, mommy's talking about you. And so that, like, that in itself was traumatic.
Yeah.
You adding to that? Are you remembering things? You know, and maybe one day it's something that will come up for Violet, like, you know, her
Yeah.
like, trauma and in her subconscious. So suppressing, I've probably said some of this stuff, but again, certain things are worth repeating so that we hear them. Because some things I know I have to write down twice or I have to repeat them so that I can hear them myself. So suppressing our darkness can amplify fear, shame, guilt, disassociation, loss of power, energy, and integrity. And when you've suppressed part of yourself, it's harder to find your shadow. Hopefully you guys can see it sounds simple and complex at the same time, because I always feel like it's pieces, putting the pieces of the puzzle together.
Right. It's easy for us to say these things, but to go through these things is a whole nother thing. Cause like when you, yeah, like when you said like the darkness amplifies your fear, like when I had that trauma suppressed for so long, that's why I have been so fearful my whole life, is because that wasn't coming out yet. And like you said, it's hard to find your shadow. I wasn't able to work on these things, and I was continually working out of survival mode and reaction mode, and not able to stop and be aware of those negative patterns because it was suppressed. My darkness was suppressed, and all of these things came from it: the shame, the guilt, you know, disassociation, all of that, loss of power. Like those are all very real things that carry a lot more weight than just the words that we're saying. So we don't want you to think like, oh, it's easy, like just to, you know, work on your shadow self. It's not easy stuff. So
Yeah, definitely all those. I've definitely had a lot of fear in my life, and I'm sure I don't know what, like, subconscious, like all of this, like why am I like afraid of certain things?
my hypnotherapist told me, you know, sometimes our subconscious attaches fear to things that have nothing to do with our trauma or our, triggers. So like she had this one client who had a deathly fear of stink bugs, but nothing ever happened to her with a stink bug, but that's what she attached her trauma with something else too. So our fears don't always relate to what caused them basically. So it again, that subconscious mind is very tricky. And that's also something I learned from her as well. Like you can attach your fear or your pain to things that have nothing to do with what caused that pain or that fear. So
We are going into learning to accept your darkness. So, some of the ways we can do that, we always talk about journaling, whether it's regular journaling or garbage journaling. Writing stuff down will help you to accept and to even find your darkness. Paying attention to your reactions. And this one I thought was really interesting. Keeping a journal of your reactions to identify the patterns and the triggers. I have never done this before, but I think I'm going to start doing that
that's
because
interesting. I feel like I do that without knowing that I'm doing that. 'Cause a
yeah,
lot of
or
what I journal is like about like, why did I react that way? I should have like, and then writing, okay, next time this happens, this is how I'm going to change it. Like that's like a lot of what I journal about is like my reactions to things. Cause like I'm hyper aware of that I shouldn't have reacted that way. But then it's like I feel bad that I did, and then I try to figure out like, okay, what can I change going forward? Or maybe it wasn't me that needs to change. What can I communicate to someone else that I feel I need in that moment? That's
yeah,
interesting.
I think I do that in my head where
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, I'm reacting to this because this is triggering me. Like, so I'm
yeah,
like making lists in my head, but then
yeah,
I'm forgetting because I'm not writing it down.
yeah. It definitely helps to
And
write it down.
yeah, and with all this work, finding your shadow, accepting your darkness, and embracing your darkness, think of it as peeling back layers of an onion. So this takes time. I had started, I guess, shadow work when I started going to therapy because it was bringing up things that were stuck or in my subconscious mind, the automatic stuff, and it started to become conscious now. So this takes time. It's not an overnight quick fix.
Yeah,
Another way is not second guessing your intuition or that little gut feeling. Again, people, places, and things. If the little hairs stick up on the back of your head or your stomach kind of feels a little funky, in certain situations, that's your intuition
yeah,
shouting at you. This will be a lifelong process. So the time that it takes, it's a continual process. It's something we can chip away at little by little each day or take a break from it. If it becomes too much, pause, take a break, zone out,
yeah. That's important too, because I think we obviously focus a lot on healing, and that's what our videos are about. But it's important to know you don't once you start this work, you don't have to be doing this all the time. You can just enjoy life and experience life without thinking about your every move. Like that's something I had to kind of reflect on and stop doing, because once I started this work, I was like, now I'm hyper aware of everything and I need to like nitpick myself in every reaction. And it's like sometimes that's not healthy to do. Like yes, it's good to be aware of it, but it is important to also take a break from it and not constantly be in this healing mindset because it's exhausting. You want to be able to just enjoy and be and just exist without having to always think about it.
your shadow self is a part of you, but it doesn't define you. And like Kenzie mentioned, it isn't all negative and dark. Your shadow was born from non acceptance and rejection. So, yeah, okay, it was born from negativity, But as you get older, as you grow, good stuff will sneak in there too. Like your shadow has like some good stuff too. And one of the things that I cannot stand, and maybe this is like online or healers, I guess I say healers because not everyone's a healer that says they're a healer. That's part of being intuitive, being aware, watching body language. People can scare you into thinking that the shadow work is dangerous or it's bad. But in reality, not doing this work is worse for you than actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely feel that therapy helped me to start this work. So I'm sure that there's therapists out there who are experts in shadow work. They're trained in how to help unlock the subconscious mind. But just make sure it's like a for real, legit, not the scammy, spammy
Yeah.
kind of people that pretend to be the expert when they're not. So when I first started doing this work, when we talk about like fake healers, fake, I guess therapists, you want to call it, I was attracting certain people in that realm who were maybe didn't have the best intentions to help me. And it was like preying on weakness, if that makes sense, and just not truly wanting to help, but just use my pain and my weak moments
Put their
as more like a control, like for their gains, for their control, instead of truly helping. So that's the best way I can, I guess, describe that through my experience. The shadow root, or the shadow definitely has roots in your childhood, like we mentioned. And I do have with Violet, there's certain words and phrases that I have banned for our vocabulary to speaking with her. And I'll just give you guys like an example, which I'm sure some of you can relate to this, but I hate the words good girl and bad girl, or you're being good, you're being bad. I hate those phrases and words because this is what leads to people pleasing adults. You hear you're being good or you're being bad.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say, you're being bad, that's where repressed feelings and lack of coping skills comes from. And then never feeling good enough. Or when you're good, it's, I need to be perfect and good all the time.
Yeah.
And not make mistakes and not upset anyone or not speak my mind. I try to focus as much as I can with the knowledge that I have at the moment on conscious language with Violet, because I want better for her than what Derek and I have grown up with. And that's something that we're both on the same page with, that we've expressed to each other. Every so often, or things will come up. Even in one of her books, I have to actually cross a word out. And I learned this from one of my friends, and it's the word secret. I don't want her, like an adult saying to a child, because predators use that language of, oh, it's a secret between me and you, or don't tell mommy and daddy, it's our little secret. So these are a couple of words and phrases that I will not budge, bend, or break on. Like, these are my non-negotiables, and I think maybe that's part of the shadow work, or my shadow, like my true self. These are my values. This is what I believe. This is like to my core. I want, with the conscious language, I also want to give her freedom to explore while also learning boundaries and speaking to her so she is confident and she is secure within herself. So growing up, being around other kids who might not be the best influence or the best people to be around, learning how to navigate them and that. And then as an adult, this will make her unshakably confident and she'll never doubt herself or her self-worth. So these certain phrases and these certain words that become part of our shadow, become part of our darkness, because the past patterns, our family patterns of what they were told, how it gets passed down from generation to generation. I am one to break cycles. I've already broken some cycles within my own family, past stuff, I guess you can say. So it's very important to me for her. I never want her to experience self-doubt. I never want her to feel like she's not good enough because of somebody else. And I think that, a lot of the stuff that I've experienced, I never want her to experience. So I would do everything in my power. That's like the mama bear, like the come at me, bro, like where it's like, don't even try me. Do not, like, if you come for my child, I will come for you, so that's.
I also wanted to make a note too about the good girl, bad girl thing too. Like, if a child is being bad, it's because a need is not being met for them. It's not because they're trying to like go against you. I mean, yeah, they can be like rebellious and try to just not listen to mommy and daddy, but like a lot of times they're trying to tell you something else, and it's up to you as a parent to kind of figure that out with them, rather than saying this is unacceptable. Figure out why they're acting this way. Their kids don't just act out for no reason. So I think that's like important to note too. Like, yes, there's certain things that need to be, disciplined on, but it's the way that you talk about the discipline and how you cope with it with them that matters. Because I think that's like, a lot of people will be like, well, if they're doing something they shouldn't be, then you should tell them. Yes, you should, but there's a way to do it in a way that is healing for them, that doesn't make them, like you said, people please in the future or become, these, not have the coping skills that they need.
Yeah, like I like to give her space. And I mean, you guys won't see this because Kenzie's going to edit it out, but this entire video has been me running back and forth and her yelling and me trying to figure out what she needs. And I'm like so warm because it's like that. I had said to Kenzie that, talk about problem solving 101 in extreme stress when you're a toddler who can't verbalize yet everything that she needs.
Yeah,
you're trying to figure it out, and it's thank you.
And it's hard to like not get frustrated too, because I feel like a lot of parents just lose and they're like, they don't want to deal with like trying to figure it out. But if you have the time, that's what they need. They just need your time to be able to help them figure it out with you.
And even like if she's whining or if she's frustrated with something, I started saying, use your words. What do you need? Use your words. And I repeat, and she doesn't hear me the first time because she's in her feels. I just keep, what do you need? Tell mommy what you need. I can't help you if I don't know what you need. And then eventually, and then she'll kind of get out all her yelling. And then like before, when she said baby, she wants to see herself, the photos of herself on my phone.
Yeah.
So doing that. And the only time, I'm not one of those parents that doesn't use the word no, like right now as she's trying to jump off a step that I have blocked. So the only time I will tell her no is if it's for her safety. If she's like going to try to jump off the couch or she's in a dangerous situation, like you are right now, little girl. Thank you.
So I know we talked a lot about childhood and things that may have come up during childhood, but that has all to do with your subconscious. So that's why we keep coming back to those themes. And your subconscious has a lot to do with your shadow self, which helps you embrace your darkness. So this all ties together. It may seem like we're going into, why are we talking about childhood and how to speak to children? But that is what forms these belief systems from a young age, and that's what starts your shadow self, is when you have these negative belief systems start. So it all ties into each other. And in our next part 3 of embracing your darkness, we're going to go more into questions about your childhood and how to start uncovering more of your shadow self through observing your childhood and what you've been through. So stay tuned.